Hello, good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are watching this. It is early morning for me. You can see I'm on a flow club session working on a client site, and I just realized it might be a great time to record a tutorial because I always get questions on how I create specifically these word banners in my Podia site designs. So I've done some tutorials on these in the past, but I'm going to do a little refresher. So what I mean by that, let me move my camera over, is banners like this, where it gives this look that we have this full width image stretching all the way across. I usually do these kind of in the top header row, but they can belong anywhere on your site really. So something like this. I also get questions on how I create sometimes footers like this, where again, it's a background row image. So you have to be mindful when it scales to mobile, it's going to look different, but I'm designing this to give you a tutorial for what it looks like on desktop. And we're leveraging these different, I just call them word banners or typography banners. Maybe there's a more creative word that you might have for them, but I use them throughout my site designs to really give this, the other Podia pros do this as well, to give it a really polished, high-end look. So I'm going to show you how I create one of these because I'm currently working on one of these pages, which doesn't, actually we're going to do this one, the voice, it doesn't have any content yet, so it's a perfect opportunity to do that. So we are going to do these in Canva. This obviously works best if you have you've already done a brand photo shoot and you have some photos. You can certainly still use photos from your iPhone or that you take yourself, or I should say from your Android. Any phone you want will do, but they need to be high res enough that you can stretch them for a banner. So keep that in mind. So I am just going to duplicate one of these pages in here so I have it as a base. Also in Canva, if you didn't already know, you can have one Canva doc with multiple different canvas sizes within. So we used to have to create, like, if I had a bunch of square images on a site, it would be one Canva doc, and then the banners would be another one. It was all kinds of craziness. Now we can create one, and I just call it, client name, website and branding templates, and then everything that they ever need exists in there, and I can give them this after. So all of these word banners that I create, or any elements that are in the background of the rows, they all exist within here. Okay, so I'm going to get out of grid view into this one. So I'm going to get rid of some stuff that's in the background here. I am going to leave these polka dots, which you can't see now. This particular client has some polka dots in her branding, so I'm overlaying it on top of the images to give it just a little something. So I'm going to start by uploading the background image that I want to use, which is this beautiful one here. Now, depending on where she is in the image and how easy this is going to be to manipulate, there are a couple ways I can make this bigger, because you want to make sure the image you're using, you have enough space to put words on either side. So if you're centered, you need to create a different background, etc. So I'll show you one way you could do it. When you have your image in here, you can click edit, and sometimes it's hilarious what it gives you as options here, but let's just give her a shot. I'm going to use Magic Expand, and I'm going to say whole page. Sometimes it puts people in and it's absolutely hilarious, but really I just want to stretch this background. So if I have to cut her out and put her on a different background, I will do that. But let's see if this gives us, okay, not quite. This we would have to, yeah, none of these are going to work for the banners. So I'm going to show you a different way to do it. I'm going to go back one step. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use the background remover tool. Okay, and then I'm going to put her over here. And then I'm going to put a different background. I'm going to call it office, gray and white. See if we can find something that works. Okay, I found one that kind of works. I'm going to have to manipulate the image a little more, but let's use this. So I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to kind of stretch it this full width. Then I'm going to click on, gosh, my camera's always in the way. Let's move it over here. I'm going to click on position. I'm going to send it to the back. And now I'm also going to flip this image so it looks like the desks are behind her this way, I kind of want to create this illusion that she's leaning on something because she is in the original photo. So I'm also going to grab, okay, let's see if we can make this. Let's go cream color doorway. Okay, we might not find what we need, but we're going to try it. Okay, I'm going to pause so I can find an appropriate image to put here. Okay, I found something that works, so stick with me. You guys are going to think I'm nuts for manipulating the image this way, but I'm going to use this. I'm going to remove the background. I'm going to put it here behind her. So position backwards. And then I'm going to make it kind of like, oops, her I want to make it look like there's sort of like a semi-transparent curtain behind her. So I'm just going to decrease. Okay, there we go. So this wasn't the office that she was in, but now I have some space to write the words over here. So my first step for this banner is I'm going to download this image. So I'm going to go File, Download, and this is what's going to be in the background. So I'm going to say go and download this as a PNG, current page. Make sure if you're in Canva and you're doing these banners and you have a whole bunch of images within it that you're selecting current page. Otherwise it's going to give you every single page in this document, and then it's really annoying for you to have to dig through them. Okay, so that's downloading over there. So here you go. That's what the first part of the banner looks like. So I'm going to get rid of this row that's here. I'm going to put a new one. It's going to be an image row. Now it doesn't actually really matter which one you pick because you can flip over to design and manipulate the choices, but my row is not going to have text in it, so I'm going to delete. You certainly can have text under the words if you want, but I'm not going to. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to design and background image, and I'm going to add that image that I just created. Also name it something better than I have here for search engine purposes. And then it always pulls in kind of this like grayscale sort of see-through. So you're going to crank up the opacity, crank down the grayscale, and up the contrast, and that will give you the true colors of how you've designed your image. Now keep in mind again, right, if someone's looking on mobile, tablet, it's all going to look different. So if you want that person in the center and your words kind of like, you know, below them sort of thing, you're going to center this image, you know, center her so that she always shows up. In this case, she's going to show up in multiple places on this page. So what I actually want is her off to the side so that if they're on mobile, it's what's in this placeholder that's going to show. Okay, so step one is your background image. Step two is whatever words you want, kind of a really funky typography banner. So I'm going to pause for 1 second so I can gather the words that I want, and then I'll show you how to create that. All right, I'm using ChatGPT to brainstorm just for placeholder content. So this one's going to be, I like this one. Okay. So now you have to create how you want the words to look. So sometimes I mock it up where the words are on the image itself so I can see, but I'm going to grab, this is what I had created on another page. So I'm going to use that as my template. And let's see, I'm going to grab Space for Women as sort of the top part. This. Go Seeking Connection. This. Actually, let's go Seeking. And you'll have to kind of move stuff around. Using different fonts will give you this really cool look. And again, I'm designing on a pretty small screen, so I've got to be a little crafty on how I'm manipulating these. Okay, let's ungroup those for a second so I can move the word. going to shrink the size of this in a second so it doesn't take over this full image. You could put different, like a circle or a highlight or whatever you like, sort of underneath different elements. You want to highlight certain words, and then you can group them so that when you move it, that remains intact. Okay, I'm going to group these elements now because I want those to stay together, and I'll group all of them and then shrink it in a second when I figure out kind of how I want this to look. And then connection, reflection, and truth. Okay, now I'm going to group all of it. So now I could play around with it like this so I could decide what it's going to look like on the image itself. Now when I'm ready to download this, because the words are what actually goes in that image placeholder on Podia, I can right click. That's really important. Make sure all of the elements that you want are either grouped together or you've got them all highlighted like this. And now if I have that group selected, I'm going to right click and say download selection. That's the most important piece of this. And then I'm going to say PNG transparent background, because I don't want a white background that's going to be overlaid on top of that image, so it has to be a PNG in this case. And when you say download selection, that means it's going to download only these items that are selected, not the full canvas background image. We don't want the full image because it's already in the background. We just want this. So we're going to download this. And then once we have our typography banner, I'm coming back over to Podia. And now where I have this image placeholder in this row, I'm going to go upload from computer. Again, name it something that makes more sense. And then I can control and design how big or small I want this image. Now, again, it's going to look different on different size computers. So in general, depending on how big the person is in the back, like where they are oriented in the background row, I usually have it at 50 or 60%. And then I increase the top and the bottom padding until I feel like I have enough of that background image showing, kind of like this. And then I can preview, okay, what does this look like on mobile? See, so on mobile, it's important to note that whatever's in that background image is going to get shifted, right? So she's kind of disappearing. So if I wanted her to always show, she would be in the middle, but then it would be really hard to read the text in any case. Or on a tablet, there you go. You can see here the image overlaps, but it still is legible. And then what it looks like on a desktop. So make sure when you're creating these banners that you really do kind of preview them in these different views to make sure you're happy with it. There's not really like a perfect science. You would always have to have whatever you want in the middle if you want it to show. And then, of course, you can also toggle off this full width pieces here, and it makes a bit of a difference. So if I say this is not full width, then it's true to size, what I have set it as here, but that doesn't look good for typography banners. So you're going to want to make sure it's full width so that those words aren't too small to read. Okay, so again, just to wrap up, there's a few steps. Creating your background image first. Hopefully you don't have to do so much manipulation and create a fake office and curtains and all of that stuff, but I wanted to show you a more complicated version of it, so that you could use, any photo you want and pretend you're in a different location. This one has some of these, you can hardly see it, but these little polka dots on the bottom just gives it a bit of depth. And then creating your word banners, typography banners, whatever you want to call this section here that draws attention to certain words on your page. Hopefully this was helpful. If you need any assistance at all, you can find me sometimes in Flow Club co-working spaces. I can drop my link for that below as well, my host page. You're welcome to come just work on your Podia site when I'm working away on client sites. All right, hope you guys have an awesome day. Bye.